Thank you for joining us. Merci d'être parmi nous. My name is Kendra Titley and I will be your moderator. Je m'appelle Kendra Titley et je serai l'animatrice de ce point de presse. Today we will be hearing remarks from Mayor Le Maire Jim Watson, Alain Gauthier, General Manager, Public Works, Directeur Général, Service des Travaux Publics, Kim Ayotte, General Manager, Emergency and Protective Services, Directeur Général des Services de Protection et d'Urgence, Bryce Conrad, President and Chief Executive Officer, Hydro Ottawa, Président et Chef de la Direction, and Joseph Muglia, Director, System Operations and Grid Automation, Hydro Ottawa, Directeur, Exploitation du Système et Automatisation du Réseau. We also have additional city staff and the Ottawa Police Service available to answer questions following remarks. At this time, I would like to invite His Worship Jim Watson, Mayor of the City of Ottawa, to say a few words.
Alors, merci beaucoup, Kendra. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. We continue to make progress on our recovery efforts with the removal of debris, restoring power to residents and businesses, and getting the remaining traffic signalization intersections operating. City staff worked through the weekend to support residents and facilitate the work of hydro crews, and will continue to work around the clock until everyone has access to electricity. At this time, power has been restored to more than 172,000 hydro customers, with a little less than 8,000 still without power. That means that power has been restored to more than 95% of the 180,000 customers impacted by the storm, and hydro crews continue to target the remaining isolated outages. There's still many residents in our rural areas without power, and I want to thank Hydro One crews for their ongoing efforts. Il reste encore beaucoup de travail à faire dans plusieurs communautés.
There's still a lot of work to do in several communities.
The Operations Center, the EOC, is now operating 4 community support centers, which are open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. The Cardell Rec Complex on Shea Road in Stittsville, the Howard Darwin Centennial Arena on Maryville Road, the Hunt Club Riverside Park Community Center on Paul Anka Drive, and the Francois Dupuis Recreation Complex on Portobello Boulevard in Orleans, which is in Cumberland Ward. Food services at Howard Darwin Centennial Arena and the Hunt Club Riverside Community Center will continue until the end of day Wednesday, but the Emergency Operations Center continues to assess the needs of the community. Charging stations for electronic devices, showers, and washrooms are available at these locations. Several city services and partners are also available at these centers to provide information related to general insurance, housing and financial services, building and demolition permits, and more. And access to all other city recreation centers is available to impacted residents for charging their devices and using the shower facilities. My city council colleagues continue to work closely with their residents and community groups to identify and respond to the specific and evolving needs in each neighborhood. Councillors have played an important role in providing updates to their constituents and relaying that information to Hydro Ottawa and Hydro One about conditions in their particular wards. I want to thank our councillors, City Manager Steve Kanalakis and Bryce Conrad and the Hydro Company and our Hydro crews and Works crews in particular, along with our first responders, for the work that they're doing at this difficult time. Merci à vous tous de ce que vous avez fait.
Thank you all for everything you've done to help everyone.
Volunteer efforts over the weekend to help with the storm cleanup. I want to thank everyone who came out to help. So far, the Clean Up the Capital After the Storm initiative has had a good uptake, with 62 projects registered and coordinating the work of 216 individuals. I also want to thank our NGO partner, Samaritan's Purse, for providing assistance to those requiring help with debris cleanup on their private property. These were the same folks that came from out of town that helped us tremendously during the flooding in 2019. The city's Emergency Operations Center and the Human Needs Task Force are working with a network of community partners to supply residents in need. Our Community and Social Services Department and partners including Ottawa Public Health and the Red Cross continue to provide wellness visits and food deliveries to residents throughout the city. I know, for instance, at the Howard Darwin Arena, Councillor Eglai worked with the Union Mission to get one of their mobile kitchens to that site to help with meals. So we thank the Union Mission very much for that and the Salvation Army. Since the start of the emergency operations response, more than 67,000 meals have been delivered throughout the city. Thousands of wellness visits have been conducted over the past week, thanks to multiple teams of Ottawa Public Health nurses the Ottawa Fire Service, the Canadian Red Cross, and youth volunteers from the Fire Venturers Program. I encourage people, if you do know an individual, perhaps a senior or someone who has a disability who is housebound and you believe they need help, please contact either 211 or 311, and an individual wellness check can be made on that individual. So we ask for your help on that. There were rather 700 intersections without power after the storm, and that number has been reduced to less than 20 intersections, with most being supported by generators. To date, traffic services has completed repairs to over 150 signalized intersections. On the cleanup front, we're making good progress removing debris, and Alain Gauthier, our GM of Public Works, will provide the latest updates. And we also thank Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry for providing, I believe, upwards of 40 individuals who are out there cleaning debris so Hydro can get in and get those last 8,000 people connected. We still have an urgent need for support from those who can help emergency meal providers like the Ottawa Food Bank, the Mission, and the Salvation Army. Residents in need, as I mentioned, can also call 211 for information on government and local community-based health and social services, including food resources. Please visit ottawa.ca/storm recovery for more information. Et en français, c'est ottawa.ca/après la tempête pour plus d'informations. I know that the last 9 days has been extremely difficult for those people who have not had access to power, and in some instances water, as a result of the storm. I just remind you that something Bryce Conrad told me, that during the ice storm, I think there were about 50 poles down, the tornado, something like 75. They're dealing now with over 300 poles down. So while you might not be impressed with that number, it shows you the magnitude of the storm. And we very much want to get everyone's power on as quickly as possible. I know it's frustrating, it's annoying, and it's very inconvenient. And we are doing everything we can. And I want to thank the Hydro crews working literally round the clock, trying to get the Hydro back up connected. And we will not stop, obviously, until everyone is properly reconnected. And there's no question we will certainly discuss from a post-mortem point of view what went well and what did not go well when it comes to dealing with this storm. A lot has gone well, but obviously if you're part of the 8,000 that still not have power, you're not too impressed with that statement. So we will certainly work to ensure that we're prepared and better prepared. But I have to thank those Hydro workers. They have a tough, dangerous job, and we need to support them now more than ever, as they are exhausted and they're doing the work that we need to get the power back on. So I'll hand things over to Alain, because his team, of course, at Public Works are doing remarkable work as well under tough circumstances to get those roads open and cleaned up. Alain, merci.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. I had the opportunity to tour a lot of the sites throughout the weekend, and I could say that our public works staff have been doing amazing work and showing significant progress in terms of our cleanup efforts. We had several hundred staff out each day over the weekend, and today we have over 600 staff that are focused on our recovery and cleanup efforts. Mr. Mayor did indicate it, but I do want to reiterate a special thanks to all of the volunteers that came out this weekend to assist with the cleanup. It's really our volunteer and their support and their generosity that makes really our community so strong. Je tiens également à remercier tout particulièrement tous les bénévoles qui ont participé aux.
So I'd like to thank all the volunteers that came to help in the cleanup this past weekend. Your involvement made a great difference.
To report that last week's quick action mitigated the potential for public health risk associated with spoiled foods. Nous sommes ravis d'annoncer que les mesures prises la semaine dernière ont réduit l'éventuel risque sanitaire lié à la nourriture.
Yeah, we mitigated the potential public health risk associated with spoiled food.
Tons of organic waste. We also collected a lot more waste also in the 15 bins that were or dumpsters that were distributed across the city. We don't have the totals on those, but I can assure you that they were very well used. And those were removed last Saturday, because now we're back to our regular weekly garbage collection. I appreciate that some of the residents may have missed the collection. so they can certainly leverage the regular collections for green bin and garbage for this week. If not, our Trail Road landfill site is also remains open till 7 tonight, till 6 for the balance of the week, and we continue to waive tipping fees for storm-related debris and waste. The priorities for this week will be to restore really the remaining elements related to our transportation system, continue our collection of tree branches and storm debris, and also one that we're putting more and more of a focus, because it is a big pressure point, is related to specialized forestry work related to removing and trimming damaged trees. So as Mr. Mayor indicated, we've made significant progress over the weekend working with hydro partners to be able to both reopen some of the roads that were closed last week. I was reporting that there were about 40 roads that were still closed because of wires and downed trees. That number is down to 20, and we expect to continue to make progress this week. In terms of the intersections, as Mr. Mayor indicated, we've gone from 700 that were not operational down to 20, and we expect that those will come back online as power is restored to those areas. And as much as possible, we're going to be providing generators, especially during peaks, for those intersections. We're also going to be conducting significant repairs to 2 major intersections in the Mayorvale closure area. So working again with our hydro partners, we've been able to secure access to the Mayorvale Viewmont and the Mayorvale Mall intersections so that we can rebuild the damaged traffic signal infrastructure. In terms of the second priority related to collecting branches and brush and debris, I want to start by commending the work of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry firefighters, really for their amazing support in terms of removing trees and debris over the weekend. Their support has been amazing. Our crews also continue to make significant progress in our hardest hit areas of Navan, Pineland, West Ottawa, and Uplands. And a lot of these areas, we've already made one pass to widen the roads to make sure that emergency vehicles are able to access and egress to communities. And we're going to be focusing now on the other side of the road to complete the debris. We've also made significant progress in the Pineland and Amberwood area, certainly areas that were significantly impacted by the storm and the amount of debris. So efforts are going on very well in those areas. And in our parks, our focus also continues in terms of safety, removing hazards, uprooted trees. This week, we're making significant efforts in Aladdin Park, Ladybird Park, Amberwood Park, Brian Parson Park, Joe Louis Park, and the Pineland Park. And also, as we make these areas safe, we recognize that we're going to have to be back in the coming months to remove stumps and finalize the removal of trees. So this week, we're going to be trying to strike a balance between continue to support the storm recoveries, but also reintegrating some of the services that we had to put on pause through the last week. So last week I mentioned that because of our diverting so many resources, that grass cutting, some of the garbage collection in parks, and also other minor maintenance would be put on hold. We are gradually bringing some of those services back. So I appreciate that. In some cases, you're going to start to see the grass a little longer in boulevards and in parks. I can assure you that we're putting the effort back into getting those areas cleared up. The last element is related to specialized forestry work. So these are trees where it's not just a question of cut and remove. There's precision work that needs to be done. There's tree climbing that needs to be done to be able to secure the areas. This is our big focus for us right now. It's certainly a big pressure point also because of the amount of work that needs to be done. I can assure you that when you're placing your service requests, all of the requests will be addressed. The way that we're prioritizing right now is as the requests come in, we are addressing the ones that pose a hazard. We're removing the hazard. In some cases, part of the tree may remain there. We're going to be back and we're going to complete the work in the coming days and weeks, as soon as basically our resources are able to catch up with those priorities. So the last piece that I wanted to focus on is really keeping our community safe. We have a lot of heavy equipment out on our roads, cleaning our streets, and it's really important for residents to be safe when traveling or walking around our heavy equipment. Please do not come close. Please keep a safe distance. Our focus is to clean, but it's also to keep everyone safe. So really appealing to the community to try to maintain safety as top of mind. In terms of closing remarks, I again want to say a big thank you for all of the help and the support that we've received. It's truly a massive community effort. Merci encore à toutes les personnes qui nous ont aidés. Vous avez fourni des efforts communautaires qui sont remarquables.
Thank you to everyone who assisted us in our cleanup activities.
From Ottawa and beyond and our hardware partners, everyone has offered a helping hand, and a big thank you. Un grand merci.
Thank you, Alain. Our next speaker is Bryce Conrad, President and Chief Executive Officer, Hydro Ottawa, to say a few words. J'invite maintenant Bryce Conrad, Président et Chef de la Direction.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Kendra. As I've said, at 7 a.m. this morning, power has been restored to over 172,000 customers across our service territory. Crews continue to work nonstop across the city, making areas safe and restoring as many customers as possible. At this point, as the mayor noted, we have less than 8,000 customers without power. Donc, à 7 heures ce matin, le courant a été rétabli pour 160.
So at 7 o'clock this morning, 172 subscribers we had returned their power. There's still 8,000 residents without power.
Again, this is not an exclusive list. Riverside Park and Hogsback, Pauline Vanier Park, City View, Crestview, and Meadowlands Drive, Bell's Corners East, and Linwood Village, Maryville Gardens, and areas around Maryville Road, specifically to the west side of Maryville Road near Hunt Club. Pine Glen Annex, south of McFarland to the corner of Maryville and Prince of Wales Drive. Blackburn Hamlet, City View, Skyline, Fisher Heights, Fisher Glen, Manor Park, Rockcliffe, Stittsville, Lincoln Heights and Britannia Heights, Whitehaven, Carlingwood West, Glaber Park, and McKellar Heights, Faircrest Heights, Riverview Park and Alta Vista, Iris and Ridgeview, areas around Dewberry Trail, Renault Road, Dolman Ridge Road, Anderson Road, and Russell Road, in the Revelstoke area, Elmville Acres in Urbandale area, and Munster. Last night, power was restored to customers in the Fisher Glen area, Pine Glen and Maryville, Cityview Skyline, Fisher Heights, Riverview Park and Faircrest, and some customers down in the Forbes, Cumming, and Castle Heights area. As you can appreciate, the situation remains ever changing. As we bring on customers, we're finding more outages that then need to be addressed, prioritized, and fixed. Moreover, we get new outages like this morning where 1,300 customers were disconnected in Beacon Hill. They were restored quickly, but it just shows you how dynamic the situation actually is on the ground. With the bulk grid fully operational, our crews will now turn to these smaller pockets of outages. As of 7 a.m. this morning, we have 33 outages of more than 50 customers across the territory. We have 27 outages of between 10 and 50 customers, and we have 273 outages of 10 or more. When the system is up and running, there will be a significant number of homes that will still not be connected and will require additional support, largely because of damage to their customer-owned equipment and or their property. Prior to re-energization, these houses will have to have the damage repaired, which includes an electrical safety authority inspection. At present, we're aware of about 150 of these, and we're addressing them as quickly as possible. That number will go up. We ask residents to remain patient as we continue to work around the clock while keeping our crews and the public safe. We ask
residents to remain patient as we continue to work 24 round the clock while ensuring the safety of our teams and the public.
Internal staff, contractors, and neighboring utility workers will remain fully engaged and deployed until such time as we have connected every resident and business in Ottawa. In a normal large-scale storm event like this, as we approach a smaller number of outages, we would normally release contractors and crews that responded to our mutual aid requests. With this particular event, We will not throttle down until everyone is restored. Hydro Ottawa, as always, will try to keep our customers, the general public, the media, and our shareholder advised of the situation via the news media and on social media. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My apologies for missing Kim Ayotte. I would now like to invite Kim Ayotte, General Manager, Emergency and Protective Services, to say a few words. J'invite maintenant Kim Ayotte, Directeur Général des Services de Protection et d'Urgence, à dire quelques mots.
Thank you, Kendra. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. It's been a productive weekend, as mentioned already, with city staff, Hydro Ottawa, and other services working nonstop in our consolidated cleanup and recovery efforts. As more areas of the city regain their electrical power, we're seeing the needs of residents shifting and evolving. As a result, we're transitioning the focus on long-term supports with the new community support centers that the mayor already mentioned. These centers are one-stop shops for information related to storm recovery. Nous sommes en transition pour nous concentrer sur du soutien à plus long terme.
So we're now focusing on long-term support. For emergency centers will become community centers. These centers will be one-stop shops where people can get information.
Representatives present, including bylaw and regulatory services staff who can offer guidance on regulations related to property maintenance and standards, dangerous trees, fencing, and pool enclosures. Community and social services with personal service workers for psychological support and referrals for various city services, including housing and financial services. Ottawa Public Health with public health nurses to provide psychosocial support and other public health information. Building code services can provide guidance for building and demolition permit requirements and processes. The Red Cross is offering psychosocial support. And lastly, there'll be information from the Insurance Bureau of Canada about general insurance questions. However, they're only able to staff 2 locations to start, Howard Johnson, Darwin Centennial, and Hunt Club Riverside Park. But printed information will be available at the other 2 centers. 2 of these centers, Howard, Darwin Centennial, and Hunt Club Riverside Park, will also be offering food services. These centers are in the areas of the city identified as high need for support for such supports. Food will be available until 7 p.m. on Wednesday at the very least, and we'll continue to assess the supports needed. The
Centennial Howard Darwin Arena and the Hunt Community Center, Club at Riverside Park, will also offer food. These centers are in sectors of the city that are in the greatest need. So food services will be offered till 7 p.m. Until 7 o'clock Tuesday at least.
Charging washrooms and showers, and will continue to offer these services while they also return to normal operations. More details can be found on ottawa.ca/storm recovery. Regarding wellness visits, as the mayor mentioned, over the weekend, the city continued doing wellness visits to support vulnerable residents still without power, as well as vulnerable communities requiring ongoing support as they transition back to normal. Au cours de la fin de semaine, la ville a continué ses visites de bien-être.
Over the weekend, the city continued doing wellness visits to support vulnerable residents still without power.
One example is a Bell's Corners community hit hard by the storm, where several Red Cross volunteers spent the weekend. Many residents said they were in need of food or information, and they were provided where to get the food, and the volunteers were also able to arrange hot meals to be delivered. In total, 200 meals were given out in this area alone this weekend. Regarding volunteer operations, at the end of last week, we launched 2 volunteer initiatives. One is Clean Up the Capital After the Storm campaign to engage residents to assist in the cleanup in their own neighborhoods. The campaign already had a good uptake, as the mayor mentioned, with 62 cleanup projects registered, 216 individuals engaged. As of yesterday, we've handed out 139 cleanup starter kits, which includes yard waste bags, garbage bags, gloves, etc. To participate in Clean Up the Capital, please visit ottawa.ca/storm recovery. Pour participer au nettoyage, veuillez visiter ottawa.ca.
To participate in the cleanup of Clean Up the Capital initiative, please visit ottawa.ca/storm recovery.
Led by a non-governmental organization, Samaritan's Purse, a Canadian aid agency working all over the world. They are assisting assisting individuals who require help with cleaning up storm damage to their homes and who need help with debris removal. This includes trees on their property, emptying refrigerators, freezers, and more. For support from Samaritan's Purse, please call 1-844-547-2663. It's great to see that the many supports and recovery efforts are being used by our city residents and that they're returning back to their normal daily lives. Over. And in some areas, the support and the cleanup will continue for weeks and months. On behalf of the city, I extend my appreciation and gratitude for the ongoing support from so many organizations, including the Red Cross and the Salvation Army. Stay current on the storm recovery efforts by following the city's social media channels and visiting ottawa.ca. Restez au courant en suivant la ville sur les médias sociaux.
So stay in touch by visiting the city's social media channels and visiting ottawa.ca.
Stages have done an excellent job sharing city storm recovery information and supports available to the residents. Thank everyone for their efforts and their patience. Please take advantage of the community support centers if you need them. They're there for you. Je tiens à remercier tout le monde pour leur effort et leur patience. N'hésitez pas de profiter de nos centres de soutien communautaire si vous avez besoin. Ils sont là pour vous. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. And again, my apologies. I will now invite each media agency to ask their question. You may ask one question with one follow-up. J'invite maintenant chaque organisme à poser une question et une question de suivi. We'll now start with Mia Rabson at the Canadian Press.
Hi, yeah, good afternoon. Just wondering if we have any sense yet of damage to structures in the city from the storm, houses, commercial buildings, city buildings, not just obviously the trees and power lines, which we've talked about, but damage beyond that, if anyone has any kind of assessment of that.
Those ongoing assessments take a long time. We do know that there are several houses that have been severely damaged. It usually takes a few weeks before we get all the insurance information in with regards to the total dollar value associated with this with regards to private property.
Okay, and I didn't hear you mention any city properties damaged beyond sort of parks and power lines, so I'll let you answer that as well in a minute. But my follow-up question is more to Hydro Ottawa. There's been a lot of complaints and talk, mostly on social media and also from city councillors, that the specific information to people who still don't have power has been lacking. They've been struggling to sort of get any information about when they might be reconnected. Obviously, the Friday deadline was missed. But what do you say to people who are just wondering why we can't get more specific information on what they're facing?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Mia, and trust me, we've heard it ourselves, and we will, when this is over and done, take a look at it. The short answer is the scope of the storm, the magnitude of the storm, and the level of destruction it did to our equipment was simply beyond anything that we'd ever imagined before, beyond our worst nightmares. So, when Saturday hits, and you look at the outage map, it just looked like it was red all over. So big parts of our service territory, big parts of our infrastructure were laying on the ground. We're in no position at that point in time to make any comments or make any promises with respect to the equipment and the restoration. So as we started to roll that up, I made the commitment about the bulk power grid, which I said would be up by Friday. It in fact came up, depending on your perspective, Saturday late night or early before I left here, it came back up. So we were talking at that highest conceptual level as to what was coming up and when. Now that once we got that piece up and running, or those pieces up and running, then we felt that we were in a better position to start providing more detail with respect to specific circuits, and that we were pushing that information out to councillors. Councillors legitimately, the public legitimately, all they wanted to know is, do you know that I'm out and when will I be restored? And again, the level of damage, once we even got the bulk system up, the level of damage was such that we weren't in a position to provide that very specific data. And as we go through this, we're now in a position where we're able to provide that information. We're pushing it out via our social media and through the councillors who, to the mayor's point, have been fantastic. So I appreciate the frustration. We're frustrated with it as well. We'll assess this after the fact to try to figure out how we can improve it. but that's where we are at the moment. The last thing I ever wanted to do and would ever want to do based upon 10 years, 11 years in this job is make promises that we can't keep. There's nothing more frustrating than telling somebody your power will be on at 3 o'clock and it not coming on before 3 o'clock. So we tried to keep our commitments to the highest level. And if we weren't prepared to make a commitment, then we weren't prepared to make a commitment. But our hope is that as we get down to these smaller numbers, we'll start to be able to do that.
Maybe we can ask Tammy Rose, the General Manager of Infrastructure and Water Services, to answer the first part of your question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mia, what we can report is we had damage to infrastructure in our public works yards. So we had damage on a roof on a work yard on Moody Drive, and also in Navan. In Navan, we had some roof repairs to be done, and we also have 2 salt domes that were demolished as a result of the storm, both at Navan and Moody. So we're in the process of assessing the scope of work and getting contractors in to rebuild the domes. And we also have roofers on site for those roof repairs.
Very much. We'll now go to Matthew Cooper at CBC Ottawa. Matthew, are you on the line? Okay, in the meantime, we'll go to Alex Gouge at City News Ottawa.
Hello, I guess my question would be for Mayor Watson. Given the fact that the next couple days here in Ottawa is supposed to be fairly hot in temperature, is there any concern for those who still have, or who are still without power, especially who might not be able to leave to get to these centers?
Yes, that's always a concern, Alex. There's no question about that, particularly senior citizens. And if they don't have an elevator that's working, it can be quite a task getting down to a common room that may have a limited hydroelectricity and perhaps an air conditioning unit. That's why we ask people, if they feel they have a family member or a friend who may be in that situation, to call 211 or 311. We can do a health and wellness check. We can provide them with water and food and so on. These individuals are our highest priority. I recognize everyone who doesn't have hydro wants their hydro hooked up as quickly as possible, but in tandem, we have to make sure the most vulnerable people in our society are taken care of. And we urge them to call 211 or 311 for that assistance. Thank you.
Thank you. That's my only question today.
Thank you, Alex. We'll now go to Ted Raymond at CTV Ottawa.
Hi there. Thanks again for taking our questions. My first question will be to, I believe, Mr. Gontier and Mr. Conrad. I'm asking about trees on power lines in terms of what the city and Hydro Ottawa is able to do. If this is kind of the thing that's holding a lot of the remaining customers back, and what the city and Hydro are working on to try to alleviate those issues for people, both on their public property, but if you can, on private property as well.
So maybe I can start, and I'll let Mr. Conrad fill in on some of the details. So our forestry staff right now are focused on tree-related matters that are not necessarily associated with hydro wires, because basically the contractors that need to work on that need to be licensed for that work. So we're working mainly on trees that pose damage to homes, and also within the right of way and within the parks that are considered to be a hazard. In terms of the hydro specific one, I'll let Mr. Conrad speak to the hydro component.
Yeah, thanks for the question. As we get down to these remaining outages, that is the issue: is tree contacts and on wires. We have forestry crews. We have a great deal of forestry contractors. We're bringing in some more arrived today. We'll have some more tomorrow. That is what they're doing. They're just simply going to blitz and remove those trees from the wires. As Alain said, it's a specialized skill set. You're working with live electricity. So there's precautions that need to be taken, but this is what they do on a daily basis, and that's work that will continue around the clock, quite frankly. So.
Okay, thank you for that. I'd like to switch tack a little bit, ask Mayor Watson a question just a little bit different with regard to some of the legislation that's coming out from the federal government with concern of firearms. I'm curious if you would comment just briefly on this. What do you support a firearm ban, a handgun ban, and what powers do you think municipalities should have in this regard?
Well, thank you, Ted, for the question. As you know, the legislation hasn't been tabled. My understanding is going to be tabled later today during or after question period. So it's hard for me to comment, but certainly as mayor of a large city that's had its fair share of shootings over the years, like every other major city in Canada, anything that can help protect and promote public safety, of course, I will support. And I'll wait for the specifics of the legislation before giving more comment, because I really don't know what's in the bill at this point, except that I believe it's going to be tabled in a few hours. Thank you.
All right, appreciate you taking that question, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nous allons maintenant à Julien Paquette, à le droit.
And now from Le Droit. The question is for Mr. Gontier. A clarification question regarding the progress made in cleanup over the past week. Last Friday, you said that all this work would not stop until it's all done. And today, you said that gradually we would redirect city resources to more routine duties. So shall we conclude that you've reached a point now that you believe you'll be done in a few days? Or is it just the most urgent work that has been done? Thank you, Julien, for the question. A good question. What I said is that we will start this week to redirect this work. We have contractors assisting us on a regular basis for the lawn mowing. So we will reestablish these services progressively. And by the end of the week, I think that a big part of the cleanup will be done. And then we will be able to remove some resources to continue to focus on the maintenance of the city. But I can't say if everything will be done. We will still have resources working on finalizing the collection of garbage. And it's obviously we will need more than one collection. As long as we've been through a given area to collect the garbage, we know that people have a lot of garbage. So, and they'll need to be a second collection, but then there might be less, higher volumes. So we should meet the demand with our regular staff. Are there still a lot of major infrastructure that still remain to be cleaned up, where there's still big branches or trees falling down, blocking access? As of noon, the 20 roads are still closed because of electric wires that are down, and the work must be coordinated with hydro. And I must say that last Friday I said that there were over 40 roads that were blocked, so we're down to by half now. The others are mostly fallen trees on properties, and that work will go on for the next few weeks. Thank you.
Ottawa. Matthew, are you on the line?
I am on the line. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. First, I have a kind of clarification for Mr. Conrad. You mentioned that as of 7 a.m., there were 33 outages across the territory of more than 50 customers, This is the smaller outages, 27 outages between 10 and 50 customers. And I believe you said 273 outages of 10 or more. Is that actually 10 or less? Or I guess if you can just recap the position on those smaller outages, just to make sure that we have those figures correct.
Yeah, apologies. It's 10 or less. So 273 outages of 10 or less.
I think just some of the picture, it might be hard for people to understand the scope of where we are or where we are in this journey. You know, we've been through a few of these kinds of events between, you know, the way the floods kind of feel like a marathon of constantly keeping the water at bay, the cleanups after the tornadoes. And I'm just wondering if you can help put in perspective, this is kind of open, I think, to the mayor and to Mr. Conrad, of where we are on the recovery of this storm. Are we, I guess, where we are on this, in this process of trying to recover and rebuild and clean up?
I'll let the mayor go first.
Yeah, you know, obviously, Matthew, all of us would have liked to have seen this situation, A, not occur, which is not realistic, but B, wrapped up a lot sooner. But as Bryce has mentioned, this is a devastating storm that's significantly worse than the ice storm and the tornado. And when Bryce said that initially, I didn't believe him. I thought, well, the ice storm was actually worse. But when you look at the poles that are down the ice storm versus here, you know, it's something like 50 poles down in the ice storm, over 300 poles down in this recent storm. So we're not through this yet, obviously. We've been fortunate. The weather's been relatively good. The one day of rain slowed down a little bit of the hydro work, but generally the weather has not been too hot. So people who don't have access to electricity for air conditioning are in a better place than they would be if this was the middle of July. So our number one preoccupation, help those most vulnerable that are without power, get power back to those 8,000 customers that we've talked about, and make sure the traffic intersections are dealt with. And then we will obviously sit down and work with the province that has agreed to pay for all of our costs, and work with our social partners and agencies to see what help they need on a post-recovery basis. And finally, do a post-mortem on the whole operation, where things went very well and where things went very poorly. Bryce?
Yeah, I don't have much to add, Mr. Mayor. I think I was out visiting some of the crews yesterday, just trying to keep their spirits up, because it's been a long haul and they're working, you know, literally 16-hour shifts around the clock. And you know, if you're one of the 372,000 customers who have power, you're going about your life and living, doing everything that you would otherwise be doing. If you're one of the 8,000 that's without power, it's the priority. It's the only thing. So it's kind of a tale of two cities a bit, and it's always that situation is always the case. It was the same in the ice storm. It was the same in the with the tornadoes. I don't think people, and I can keep going on and on about the magnitude of this storm, but you know, it's effectively an F2 tornado that was 6 miles wide, came gushing through. So you know, everyone talks about, you know, there'll be a postmortem, as the mayor said, but no one builds infrastructure to survive 190-kilometer-an-hour winds. It's as simple as that. It would be prohibitively expensive, and it's just not something that's done. So we can agree to do all the different things that we need to do, and we can harden our infrastructure, as we obviously need to do. But that's where we are right now. And again, our priority, you know, we're not going to stop. I mean, you said it was a marathon or a journey. The journey is far from over. There's still 8,000 people depending on us. So
Thank you very much. Next, we'll go to Liz Payne at the Ottawa Citizen.
Thank you. I'm not sure who this goes to, perhaps Mr. Ayat. I'm wondering, in some of these wellness checks, has anyone or have any people been discovered who were in particularly rough, desperate shape, in need of help when help got there?
I wish I had that specific information, Elizabeth, but I don't. I don't know if our fire chief or our paramedic chief can add anything to this. They are on the line. Maybe we'll start with Paul. Do you have any specific information with regards to what we've uncovered during the wellness checks?
Thanks, GM Ayotte. Liz, thank you for your question. Liz, I don't have specifics, but we can certainly say, and I know the mayor has mentioned this a number of times as well. It's really nice and warming to see the neighborhoods and the community groups that are reaching out and helping a lot of the residents that have been home, without power, without the basic necessities. But we have come across some situations where they were running low on water. They needed some assistance with medications, and that's what these wellness teams are all about, where you partner up with members of public health, fire services, paramedic services, and a whole bunch of other members that I'm not mentioning. But we are there to look after their basic needs, and that could be as simple as providing some drinking water. And you know what, a lot of the times as well, when you're sitting in the dark in isolation, it's just that opportunity where you can sit down and have a conversation with our residents. So I think the city has done an exceptional job with the wellness checks, and we are going to continue to do the wellness checks with those that remain without power.
Yeah, thanks for that, Elizabeth. And not to repeat everything that Paul says, but probably the important piece is that there's been a significant increase in our call volume, and it's persisted over the last since the power outage. And that's probably been the most significant piece, along with an actual increase in the acuity of the patient disposition. Nothing that we haven't been able to address, but it is something that's notable as a result of the overall long-term effect that it's had on our community. Thank you for the question.
Donna, I don't know if Donna Gray, our General Manager of Social Services, who is responsible for that part of the operation. Donna, do you have anything else to add? The wellness checks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The one thing, just to reinforce, I think what the team has been saying, primarily what we're seeing is food insecurity and mental health needing to just be connected to supports around mental health. But the other thing that I think has been remarkable through this whole crisis is all of our community agencies, as well as our social services staff who would have individuals who are vulnerable in the community on caseloads, have also been reaching out proactively on a regular basis to connect with them as well. And again, offer financial assistance if that's the key. So primarily it's been food security, mental health supports, and connection for things like batteries or other items that people needed in their home.
Thank you. And a follow-up question, Mayor Watson, you have talked several times about a post-mortem after. I mean, at this point, obviously we're far from over yet, but what issues stand out that you want to talk to different levels of government about that are obvious to you at this point?
Excuse me, Liz, that's a good question. There are a couple of things that come to mind. The lack of generators in apartment buildings. I know my colleague Keith Eglai and I are going to work on a motion or a direction at the next city council meeting that talks about do we have the authority, or where do we have to get the authority to ensure that an apartment building has as a minimal enough power and a generator station that can power one elevator, because we know that a lot of seniors live in apartment buildings, and if they're up on the 10th or 12th floor, they're not coming up and down with groceries. It's just not realistic. The second is going back to generators as well. What authority, or where do we need to receive the authority to ensure that a gas station has power? We had a situation where we had gas stations with gas but no power, and we had other situations with power and no gas. So, that caused a fair amount of grief, certainly in the first early days, where there was a shortage of gas and a shortage of stations that had proper electrical backup. So those are some. The other is, how do we better tailor and target those outages on the hydro map to be more accurate than perhaps they have been in the last couple of days. Usually when there's a small storm or a small outage, that map is amazing, pins it down to the neighborhood. This was so overwhelming, as Bryce mentioned, it was just like one big red blob on the whole map of the city of Ottawa. So how do we better communicate with our residents with respect to this kind of a major disruptive storm in our community. And there'll be other, people are sending me suggestions all the time, and we welcome those suggestions as we dig deeper into what went very well. Because when you look at it, we went from 180,000 without power down to 8,000, but those 8,000 are obviously not happy customers, and we have to do better on a go-forward basis. But this is the time now. We're going to put the postmortem to the side. We've got to get those 8,000 back up and running power, and then we'll have a lot of time to do a thorough deep dive on how we do a better job. Because guess what? With climate change, these incidents are not going to be the 1 in 100-year storm. We've seen that with flooding, and we've seen it with tornadoes. It's going to be much more frequently, and we'll have to be better prepared, as will every municipality around the world and in Ontario.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ensuite, nous irons à Catherine Moras à Radio-Canada.
Catherine Morat, Radio-Canada. Yes, my question has to do with the residents that are still without power. So the question was asked in English. Some residents would have liked specifically what time and what day electricity is going to return. What do you answer to these residents? I think that's a question for Hydro. Yes, it is. Well, that's always the difficulty. We're doing the work right now, but to forecast the exact date or time at which each resident of these 8,000 residents are going to be reconnected is difficult. I hope that we'll have a better idea this afternoon as we get closer to the objective. We're slowly updating the map that the mayor referred to. And so if we can, we are now issuing some more a general timeline as to when service is going to be restored within a day or two. But the situation evolves constantly, so it's difficult. From one hour to the next, things change. You were saying that you didn't want to make any false promises. What are the why can you not indicate what time or what date you expect to resume service? Well, we saw it last night. We were reconnecting a large number of residents in Nepean, or Fisher Heights, I think, and just after 30 minutes, we had another outage. So we're still trying to reconnect those residents because the amount of damage is unreal. So when we reestablish power, we notice then that there are other pieces of equipment that may have been damaged. And so when we'll have a better idea of all the damage that we need to repair, then we'll be able to issue some clear deadlines. But we're working. I know what the public wants, but we're working with the challenges. Yes. So how do you prioritize operations? So how do you decide which sector is going to be reconnected instead of another? That's a good question, Catherine. Well, first of all, when we're thinking of reconnecting a group of people, subscribers, we first of all deal with the bulk of the network. So the main lines, in other words, that's what we need to reconnect before we start fixing other problems. And so we start with institutions like hospitals and seniors' residences. And then it's a question of the amount of people that we can reconnect with the least amount of effort. So if we have to put back 15 poles to connect to 5 people, but of course that's a lower priority than resuming power to a neighborhood of 2,000 or 3,000 residents. So right now we're at a place where we have 33 outages with 50 people or more. So that's our priority right now. Does that make sense? 33 operations, you mean? No, 33 outages that actually have impacted 50 people or more each. Right, now I understand. So can you give us our other objectives as well? Oh, yes. I'm Bryce Conrad. I'm a CEO of Hydro Ottawa.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Merci.